Zach Krager. We meet again. You shared my review of Barbarian back in the day and said that I deserved a goddamn award, so let's run that back. I know you're here. Oh, I'm just kidding, aren't I? How about this time I don't do any research on the movie because I think that Emma from Spooky Astronauts did kind of like a deep dive, and instead I'll just share my thoughts and interpretations, and Zach, you can shoot me an email. Let me know how I did. Sorry, delusional moment over. Let's get this review cracking. Although before I do that, we should probably square away the whole subscribing thing. If you can stand a wannabe Krager addressing the real Krager in her video intros, then I think that you and I will get along. Although my usual stick is that I am the Antichrist, okay? I am Satan's favorite daughter. Hilariously, I just recently met my birth mother for the very first time, and I apologize for that being my gag. No hard feelings there, though, I think. Anyway, if you enjoy chaotic intros, you never know what you're gonna get next, etc., etc., also click the like button and the notification bell. That way my videos will always pop up for you. What are we even here for today? I have been rambling. I guess it's just because I love to waste your time, but let's get rolling. The structure of today's videos is how I've been reviewing movies for a very long time. I kick it off with my expectations going into the film, then we talk about my spoiler-free thoughts, and then we do a bit of a plot breakdown. Expectations. Obviously, I was excited about this movie because Barbarian just blew everybody out of the water in 2022, myself included. I had my reservations though because I knew that the pressure must have been so high for him, and honestly, I wasn't really sure what else this dude might have to say. I sang his praises for this back in my Barbarian review, don't get me wrong, but I'm just unsure what else a man who discovered empathy for women in his 30s might have to say. By the way, just know that every single thing that I say, everything that comes out of my mouth might be halfway a joke, and I'll never confirm or deny it. I avoided all the marketing for this movie, but I caught glimpses of it as I do. I'm doing my usual thing. I have my noise cancellation AirPods. I'm watching a YouTube video, but sometimes like certain lines and things, or I'm walking in, I catch glimpses. I knew the basic premise. I knew that a bunch of kids disappear, and thank God that is literally like in the opening narration, like first 30 seconds of the movie, you hear, oh, all these kids went missing. So I actually went in like pretty much completely blind, but no, I can't dare say completely blind because I saw all of my mutuals who were seeing it before me giving it like 4.5, 5 stars. And I'm talking people with like a really broad range of taste, all my different friends from different states and different countries, all having the same consensus. There was not a single person that I followed on Letterboxd that did not give it at least 4.5 stars. So I went in blind, but with way too much hype. I mean, I'm really good at not being like peer pressured into being super excited for something, because every once in a while there is something that everybody loves and then I'm the Grinch for. Commonly it's the opposite. I lap up the garbage that y'all don't like. So when something is super hyped up, I'm like, I don't know. Oh, I also saw it late, which is why I was seeing everybody's early reactions. I wasn't able to go to my usual Thursday night preview night screening. That's also why this review is going up on a Friday and not a Monday, because I was traveling. I was in Iowa. I was meeting my biological family for the first time. There will be a lot more content coming out about that on my second channel soon. But now let's get to my theater experience. The Iowa vibes are a little bit different. Somebody was talking at full volume when the movie started, and like even with the opening narration, it was very distracting. That person just did not have the self-awareness pack, or they did not care. And then somebody who was in a row rather close to us yelled back at them, hey, shut the fuck up. And ooh. My sister in Iowa was literally telling me why she doesn't like flip people off on the road and stuff because their gun laws are very, very lax, like their open carry laws. So I was like, oh, that was bold. And then the person back there that was talking was like, who even said that? And I was like, oh, brother, like if this is about to be a bad theater experience, I will protest. There was a little more talking than I would have liked, but it actually was pretty sparse. Like overall, it was a really good viewing experience. Just got off on a rocky note and had me a little worried, but for the over 2-hour runtime, there was hardly any other talking besides that. And if you saw my Letterboxd review, then you know that I loved it. I loved it more than Barbarian, huh? Granted, look, I haven't rewatched Barbarian since I saw it in theaters for the second time in 2022. Also because there's no physical media. That's not really relevant. So weapons. Let us begin with the direction, which I should have known would not fail me. What do you mean actually finely crafted jump scares that are technically flawless, that aren't just thrown together for shock value? What do you mean? It's like early 2010s James Wan is in the room with us. I will be sharing the details of my favorite jump scares in the spoiler section, so hopefully you've seen it and you can stick around. I also am loving the parallels that I am seeing between Barbarian and Weapons. in the way that Krager captures environments like houses, basements, and the way that he captures characters moving through an environment. I am a slut for a tracking shot, and I discovered that I was with Ari Aster's early work. Aster's reasoning for doing that is that it brings him comfort knowing that he got the coverage he needed to because he literally just watched the entire scene in a oneer. I just love it because I think that it really helps you live in the moment. You feel every single pregnant pause. You get the uninterrupted, uncut, actual interaction that happened between the actors. When you see every single breath that the actor takes, you get to pick up on every single little movement they've devised for their character. And I love that Krager does that too when he is tracking an actor through their environment, because it's a really interesting task for the actor, the way that he does it, because typically he does it from behind. The actors have to get you to read their emotions from the back of their head and their body language from the back. And let me tell you, they pull it off. It's also beneficial because we're basically seeing exactly what they're seeing. It kind of feels a little bit like a video game. And then it's also weird because it feels kind of voyeuristic to be just like following them right behind them. We're like breathing down their neck. What absolutely floored me was that this was the same cinematographer as the guy on Everything Everywhere All at Once. What do you mean? I'm asking that for the second time already in this video. What do you mean? That's a testament, I think, to Krager's direction, because I thought for sure it was the same DP as Barbarian, especially with the house shots and the way that they set up tension using the camera movements. Now I know for sure how much of that was actually Krager's vision and not so much that he was being guided by the DP. I did see a clip recently that he works very, very closely with the DP for months on end, going to the location, editing the movie ahead of time in his head. Like, he does so much prep. Going into the movie, I didn't know that though, and yet it still became clear to me just how much actually came from his noggin. If you've been around, then you know that I have directed a couple of short films. I've directed a music video. They're all available to watch on this channel, and I'm fundraising for the next one. And as the director, you really decide how much you guide the ship. The DP could very well be the one with all the vision. I would say that it was definitely more 50-50 with Somnum. I let Jared kind of take the reins there. Then with Liked, I was trying so desperately to get my vision across, but then it just was like time, budgetary constraints, and honestly, I feel like me not fully being listened to. With Plaything, the music video, we met ahead of time and we laid the basic groundwork, but with that one, we just kind of were shooting from the hip, and I think with music videos, you can do that, and that's super fun. But it's really up to the director to be able to communicate and get their point of view across. Otherwise, you're gonna be mostly leaning on the DP, their expertise, and kind of their vision for it. This movie definitely demonstrated that Barbarian wasn't any kind of fluke, and that it definitely was Zach Krager's personal stamp. And to that point, this looks completely different to Everything Everywhere All at Once. I never would have guessed that it was the same DP. Talk about range. Talented fellow. That said, I do hope that things change up a little bit for Krager's next feature. He has covered houses and basements exquisitely. I would like to see his next movie take place in a completely different environment just to kind of see how he plays. The score was also used beautifully. I love the use of silence. Sometimes it's way more powerful than music. And I was yesterday years old when I learned that Zach Krager worked on the score. He also was the solo screenwriter on this movie. Incredible stuff, but definitely still was a team effort. A film can't look this technically flawless without the whole crew, and obviously can't be brought to life without amazing actors. Julia Garner is on fire right now. White Woman of the Summer. Between this and Fantastic Four, I'm like, oh, range. Shows how badly she was wasted in Wolfman. I can tell that Krager is still in his feminist era because he gave us this likable female character who still is kind of like a mess as a person. And he's still in his ACAB era, but more on that later. Again, am I joking? Am I not? Ooh. Josh Brolin was obviously fantastic. I literally didn't even realize that Thanos was on the screen. My bad. Benedict Wong is also great. I had only ever seen him in Doctor Strange, and I finally got to really see his range here. I would love to see him lead a major horror film in 2026. Blumhouse, New Line, Neon, write that down. I'm not fucking around. Like, write that down. I will crawl out of this screen Samara Morgan style. Alden Ehrenreich is also fantastic. I hope that I'm saying your name right, you handsome king. I feel like he doesn't really get the love that he's due, and that should absolutely change after this film. I loved him in Solo, a Star Wars story, but nobody liked that movie. Krager got some major heavy hitters in this movie, okay? He got him, And then you got like 3 Marvel actors. But to be fair, if I was an A-lister, I would absolutely want to work with the guy that just dropped Barbarian out of nowhere. Also, someone who I desperately hope gets his flowers is Austin Abrams. I just saw the announcement that Zach Krager's Resident Evil movie is going to be starring Austin Abrams. Oh, we win. And he also said that it's going to have like an Evil Dead 2 vibe. And oh, we win. Oh, we've won. I've been ringing the bell on that man since, I'm waggling my finger at you, since Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Then I saw him again in Do Revenge, and that was 3 years later, and now 3 years ago. And I was like, give him more jobs. In this movie, he disappeared into his role. I literally didn't even recognize that it was him until afterwards when I saw his name in the credits. I could easily see him as a Jack Nicholson type, by the way. I think that he's gonna go on to do really big things, and he's only 28. We are so lucky. I should have done a little bit of research because I do wonder how much of this movie is good writing versus how much these actors brought it to life, because there's always a mix of the two, but it does kind of fall on like a spectrum, whether it's really heavy-handed on the directing and writing or really heavy-handed on like letting the actors do their thing. And maybe everybody here is just really, really talented and I'm not giving them enough credit, but I kind of get the sense that maybe Krager is a little bit lax with his dialogue, or he otherwise allots time for improv. And he did mention in that clip that I saw that because he meticulously plans everything so much that they do have time to kind of play. I'm assuming that there is time for improv and all of that and like testing out different dialogue, because almost all of the performances in Weapons and Barbarian have this very light and natural feel to them. Or his casting director is just really, really good at her job. And speaking of the writing, there is a really interesting non-linear structure that I enjoy. It switches from character to character. I felt that I sunk into their perspective a lot more thoroughly than if I was just bouncing around with all of them linearly. Linear, is that a word? It also services the mystery. It's so well composed in how it deals its cards. The last movie that I saw do that so well, I think, would be James Wan's Malignant. That's another Barbarian parallel, by the way, that I wonder if he'll break out of in his next movie. But he loves a distinct act break and staying with one character and then making those characters meet up with each other. Moving on to the horror, though. It is phenomenal. It cuts deep to the most primal fears of adults and children alike. I found myself equally scared and disturbed by the jump scares, the gorier moments, and then also some of just like the mounting dread. I loved seeing that variety over the course of the film. And it's also a very simple mystery. It's simple and yet it doesn't really have any easy answers. I mean, the literal answers might be easy, but it's the way that they ruminate that isn't. I saw people complain that they wish that things had been explained a little bit more, and I kind of disagree because initially I thought that was the point. But then I saw an interview where Krager confirmed that a lot of the stuff in the movie doesn't really have meaning. For instance, the way that the children run, he just thought that looked creepy. I don't think that he went into this movie really intentionally with theme the way that he did for Barbarian, but all art is political. All art has some kind of theme, whether the creator is conscious of it or not. With Liked, the theme was kind of intentional. It was about kind of like my fear of the human ego and just how many absolutely shitty people the internet has produced, and also just like fame in general, just a lot of bad people. But then I got this really wonderful comment that kind of broke down this theme that they extrapolated about one's fear of motherhood, and I was like, oh yeah, absolutely that. Absolutely that. I wasn't conscious of it, but going back, that totally aligns with a lot of my attitudes, and I was like, oh my god, this manifested in my art in a way that I was not even conscious of. That's crazy. So I am gonna break apart the themes later, and I'm really excited to do that. So let me just like wrap up the spoiler-free section. I give it 4.5 stars. I have very few complaints, and I do have to save that for the spoiler section, so go see this movie by any means necessary. It's a hoot, and I mean that so literally. I was laughing my ass off in this movie, and it's a roller coaster because, like I said, sometimes genuinely terrified, but god did I have a great time. And I actually score it higher than Barbarian. Now granted, like I said, because I haven't rewatched that, it's been a while, because where the hell is the physical media? It's not Zach Krager's fault. He's tried. It just makes no fucking sense. Like, that was the most popular horror movie of 2022. I know that because my whole audience voted on it. Corporate overlords keep forgetting that I am trained to kill. I will hunt you down. After Luigi Mangione, I probably shouldn't joke about that anymore. Unless, weird tangent over, go see Weapons and then come back for the spoiler section, but I'm sure you've seen it already. So spoilers, let's dig in. First of all, hell of a mystery. In America, we live in a uniquely hellish reality where a whole classroom of students could disappear on any given day. Not because of a witch, but because of guns. That created such a somber mood, and I don't know if that's gonna hit quite the same in other countries. Do you guys think that will have any bearing at all on how other countries countries receive this movie. I'm curious. I do have a lot of international viewers though, so let me know. But I personally went to college in a town where there was a shooting at a local bar that a lot of the students frequented, and one of my classmates' brothers died. Now, that is the only shooting that has been close to home for me personally, but there are people in this country who have survived multiple shootings in their lifetime. That girl, she never came back that semester. I sincerely hope that she and her family have found some kind of healing. But this movie captures the very unsteady and unsure atmosphere of the world after that kind of traumatic event so well. The stages of grief explored in this movie are interesting too, particularly anger and the witch hunting. Yet another phenomenal dichotomy between the accuser and the accused. Reminded me a lot of Barbarian in that way, where first we're following a woman who is potentially about to be victimized in this situation, and then we follow the guy who like sexually assaulted somebody, right? Between Justine and Archer though, this was like the perfect way to do the both sides kind of a story. What I mean by that is that Eddington was a flop. Flop, flippity, flip, flop, flop. I said a flip, flop, floppity, floop. That movie was trying to equate two things that had no business being compared to one another. Was done in, honestly, like kind of a mean-spirited way. Weapons actually properly gave us the POV of two people who surface level seemed to be on opposing sides of an issue. At least on one side, like on Archer's side, he so clearly sees her as the enemy. But then in reality, they do have the common enemy. I think Weapons severely succeeded where Eddington failed. Just in terms of like that kind of theme, people against one another, but in reality having a common enemy that they should be like working together against. It's just, I don't know, approached with empathy, and as an audience member, you have a full understanding of each of their point of view. And I really like that both of them are flawed too. I think that it makes her more interesting that she relies on booze to cope, and that she is a deeply empathetic person, but it gets her to the point where she acts inappropriately with students. And nothing crazy, but like, you know, I never had a teacher drive me home. And then he is a bit of an angry individual. He jumps to conclusions because he is so angry, he's so desperate, and so he blames her. And some of my favorite moments from this movie come from the first two acts where we get their dream sequences. Now, the best jump scare of the movie, let's break it down. Actually, there's kind of two of them. First of all, probably the best one is when she has a false awakening and she wakes up in bed and she dreams of the witch. Let me tell you why this was so effective. She wakes up. The noise is coming from down the hall. Everything is pointing down the hallway. The movement of the camera, where she is looking, the noise is sourced there. The gaze of the camera lingers. This isn't just a simple misdirect. Everything about the framing is pointing you to that direction and leading you to assume that she might be about to get up and investigate, or that whatever is gonna be jumping out at us is going to be coming from that source. The noise is the real kicker. I think that is why this worked for me so well. But then she lays back and the witch is on the ceiling. My heart stopped. It reminded me so much of the Conjuring wardrobe jump scare, which is why I brought up James Wan earlier. There's the misdirect of the hands clapping in the wardrobe only for Bathsheba to be sitting on top of it, and it's because he has trained you to have the expectation that something is coming out of that wardrobe. You have no expectations that she's gonna be crouching on top of it. That is one of the best jump scares of all time, but I would venture to say that the one in Weapons is even better. Then there's the second one in Archer's dream. This was probably the best example of just a stunning lack of sound. I think that was one of the #1 elements that contributed to the atmosphere, and then I have my suspicions that they were shooting day for night, and it created a really odd nighttime vibe. I'm not sure. It also felt very Insidious, very The Further. Someone who watched the interviews, did Krager ever mention that Wan was a big inspiration for him? But so he runs up to the house, and for a millisecond, I'm thinking that it's about aliens because the camera starts to pan up to the sky, where we see an AK-47 or whatever, a machine gun. I don't fucking know. Don't correct me. Nobody cares. And that obviously evokes a really strong reaction from Americans specifically. That was a very emotional, like, whoa. At that point, it was still a vague enough metaphor that I felt like the movie was really deliberately laying out its cards and not showing too much. At that point, I still did not understand how this whole mystery was going to unravel. They had me for a long time, and ultimately it's never completely unraveled because we don't get a whole lot of motive. But anyway, he gets to the house and he's speaking to his son. This is a great example of using cuts to your advantage in the edit. This jump scare is so good because once once again, they have established the expectation that he is speaking to his son, and it lasts a really long time. You get really comfortable. And listen, once the audience has been trained to expect the boy's face and they're cutting back and forth, it's easy to make a really basic jump scare, okay? But that's not what he did. My camera battery died right as I was getting so excited. What made this one so effective is that we had already panned back to Michael. He was there. It wasn't a cut, but rather a flash of light that then showed us Gladys, and I about shit. Retroactively, the only question I have about this now is why were they dreaming of her? The explanation that I made up in my head is that it just kind of has to do with her sphere of influence. So those most affected in the town would probably be experiencing that. Alternatively, to go along with the theme that I made up for the movie, she's just toying with her food for the fuck of it. I don't know how I feel about that explanation though, just because I don't really see the benefit of her doing that when the likelihood of them tracking her down would increase exponentially if she exposed herself to them. Would love to know all of your thoughts on her showing up in their dreams. And then after that, oh, now I'm forgetting the order. Do we get the POV of Marcus? That's really intense. Or did that come after Paul and James? Whatever. I appreciated all the laughs with Paul and James POV because there's a really heavy stretch when we get to Alex, right? His performance, by the way, holy shit. I wonder if that's a kid who's in it for the long haul, and I sure hope so. Marcus's POV at first is kind of funny when we meet Gladys. I think, is that after Paul and James? Why can't I remember? Anyway, I think that when we meet her, it's supposed to be kind of off-putting, but I'm getting the sense that I'm supposed to be laughing at like her crazy makeup and stuff. And hagsploitation is just, it just doesn't do it for me anymore. In fact, it kind of annoys me. Stop making old women scary. I'm bored of it. I gave it a pass because it was a good character and amazing acting by Amy Madigan, but I do grow weary. I need another horror movie where we have a main character who's a badass older woman like Barbara Hershey in The Manor. Of course, we have Elise. Hot take, but I like the fourth Insidious movie because she gets to be the main character. That's just my preference, okay? But Amy Madigan is so good. And what she represents is so good. Like, I can't stay mad. My interpretation is this, and are you listening, Zach? I'm still expecting that email. Even if this wasn't a conscious choice, let me know if it resonates. The one shot of the gun in Archer's dream is kind of what made everything tie together for me. Just in terms of theme, I think that it's about like senseless violence and the lack of motive for it. Now, there is something to be said about this not being an elevated film, and I love that, okay? I'm not saying that it needs to be, but I do think that you can extrapolate quite a bit of meaning from it if you're interested in that. Given that we have Gladys, who is older, and her motivation seems to be, you know, she's trying to recover from a sickness. Maybe it's alluding to some of the blame being on older generations, only operating for their own means at the expense of the youth. I think there is something there. Older generations being in power, doing jack shit about mass shootings and children disappearing from schools, and low-key the geezers being the cause of this senseless violence. Or was her saying the kids can help her get better just a way to manipulate Alex? Would love to know your thoughts on that once again. Because obviously her main motive is just to weaponize people. Like, we don't get any other deeper level motivation than that. Her violence is so senseless. We don't even see her brewing up anything to stay young. And she has the kids there for a hot minute. She's not really doing anything with them. Anyway, one of the most disturbing scenes for me of the whole movie is when she is getting his parents to stab themselves in the face. All I could think of was just how traumatizing that would be for a young boy his age. Big ups to Campbell's soup, by the way. I never ate it before, but I don't think I ever will in the future either. Anti-advertisement. The whole situation just was so evil. Manipulating just a little boy by torturing his parents. One of the other most disturbing moments was the low-key kind of Shining homage of him crouching beneath the door and his mom just screaming at him through the broken boards. Maybe it's just my maternal instincts really kicking in with that frontal lobe going off, but I just wanted to scoop him up and just run away with him. Usually I'm okay. I can kind of separate, you know, hey, you're an adult, you're watching a movie, it's pretend. But oh, my heart was breaking. I'm getting ahead of myself, but what else is there even to say about that ending? I could not think of a better punchline to this film than the last, 5 minutes or so? 5, 10, how long are those kids chasing her? It's like that iconic scene in Hot Rod where Rod is just tumbling down the side of a mountain for like a full minute straight, and it just keeps being funny. Those little kids could have broken through 10 more sets of windows and I would still be laughing. I was losing it, bellowing, guffawing. I don't know if I've ever laughed so hard at the punchline of a film. I was laughing a lot at Together, but not even close to the belly laughs I was experiencing in Weapons. And me and my sister were laughing the absolute most out of the entire theater. I don't even know if other people people were laughing that much. I heard one distinct voice of a girl cracking up quite a bit, but everybody should have been. It just kept being funny. The comedic timing on the edit, shout out the editor. What a sweet release to such a fucked up film. Oh, but then the final narration says that his parents are still being fed soup. Oh, some of the kids have finally started talking again. Oh, Alex deserved better. I really thought that her dying and the spells breaking and stuff would kind of snap them out of it. Like, yeah, no, I expected them to be traumatized, but I thought that he would still at least get to live with them. But Krager doesn't really seem to do happy endings. He's also still doing the abrupt ending thing, and I wonder if that was organic or if he was trying to kind of recreate the feelings and like the emotional impact of the ending of Barbarian. Do you remember how aghast we all were? Be My Little Baby? Are you joking? In Weapons, it didn't fully have the same effect on me, but I mean, come on, like Barbarian had the best abrupt cutoff ending and song of all time. But it did the job, you know? Like I said, some of the kids have started speaking again. Oh, cut to black. Oh, it's a decently long movie and yet not long enough. I want to know what happened to all those kids and like how they recovered. I want to know how Alex is doing. Oh my god, I didn't even talk about it seemed like kind of like a Pennywise reference, didn't it, when James saw her kind of out in the woods? That's just not relevant anymore, is it? Anyway, yeah, I want to know where all these characters ended up. So sad. I don't think we ever will. I don't feel like Krager is the type to make stories that demand sequels, and quite honestly, I hope that Barbarian and Weapons never do get them. Luckily, the studios haven't demanded that yet either, and I swear to god, if a Barbarian sequel is ever announced before a Barbarian physical media release, I will unleash my father's hellhounds. Anyway, big ups to Zach Krager once again. I feel like he's the kind of filmmaker who's just gonna keep getting better as he goes. I think eventually he will step out of horror once again, and maybe we'll get a really, really good comedy or a good drama or an action. I don't know. I just kind of see him as the type who will probably keep leveling up and doing really different and interesting things. I already eagerly anticipate the next, so no pressure. No pressure. And that email, I'm officially waiting now. So what did you think? I have some specific things I'm really curious your thoughts on that I mentioned in this review, but let me know your thoughts on literally anything in the comments down below. If you would like more content from me, I have solo reviews of every major horror release of the year. If you'd like more content from me, I do a lot of solo reviews like this. I also do monthly recaps, and god, there have been so many different eras on this channel. Just go back. There's fun for the whole family here. I also have a second channel where I primarily talk about physical media, but like I said, I recently have been making some adoption content. There's gonna be more of that coming out. I also post travel vlogs over there. So there's a lot to enjoy, but wait, there's more. I have a Patreon where there is a podcast with my dad. I post bonus reviews. I post career updates and juicy behind the scenes stuff about the film industry. So go sign up over there, and depending on which tier you join, you get a bonus video every single week. But more than anything, I just hope that you enjoyed this video and that I catch you in the next one. Bye.